Good morning. So, whenever preparing Sunday service, I do a lot of youth ministry stuff. So I'm mostly over there, like doing Sunday school, or downstairs with like the 5-year-olds. So talking to an adult audience is sort of a unique experience in the last few years. But one thing that always struck me about Sunday service, like when you teach middle schoolers and elementary kids, you're teaching them something new, right? You're trying to open their minds a little bit. But with adults, you know most of the stuff already, right? And so my job isn't so much to teach you something new, but to remind you of something you already know, right? Because life is hard and full of stuff, and we're all busy, and it's easy to forget. And so my hope today is that I can remind you of something important, and that as we go into the week that you can practice those things. Because last week was Thanksgiving, I thought a good topic would be gratitude. It's sort of one of those things that everybody knows is important, but is hard to actually do, at least consistently, right? In preparing for this, I was looking for gratitude quotes, and unsurprisingly, almost every religious practice has something about gratitude, right? And so I have a couple of quotes to start us off. The first is from probably the oldest religion, Hinduism. This is from the Dhanyavad. I'm sure I said that wrong. When I am grateful, I find grace. By looking for blessings in my life, I open up space for light in every experience. Thought that was kind of cool. And then the Quran, 39:7. If you are thankless, Allah has no need for you. And if you are thankful, He is pleased by that in you. And then, full circle. The Bible has a whole book on gratitude, right? The book of Job. But the quote I picked from there is Thessalonians 5:18. In everything give thanks, for this is the will of God in Christ towards you. And then my personal favorite, True Father. That one is, harmony, not conflict, characterize the spirit world. Its guiding principles are balance, gratitude, love, and harmony. I think every religious practice, or every modern day religion, exemplifies or talks about the importance of gratitude, because it's one of those things that balances out your life, right? And especially in this current age, it's more and more important because we have Facebook, right? When I was a kid, it was MySpace, and that's gone now. But, right, Instagram, look at all these people doing cool stuff like skydiving and lounging on a beach and flying first class and jet plane, and you go, oh, if I had that, I'd be happy, right? And it's so normal for us to compare ourselves to people around us, right? And I think about it kind of like a bucket of water, right? If you think about your mental well-being as this bucket of water, and generally speaking, you want it to be warm, right? Because I've done ice baths; those aren't fun. But when tough times happen, and they happen, right? Life is difficult. That's sort of the nature of life. It's sort of like adding some cold water to that bucket, and eventually the temperature drops, and then you look and go, oh, that person's got a car I want, and that person has a private jet, and that person has kids that are respectful and listen to them, right? And that person is a kid who drives their mom to the doctor's office. I don't know. I don't do that. Gila does. Gila's a way better sibling than me. We're more the taking kids. Grandma, watch our kids so we can go on a date. And she does. And I am grateful. But, going back to the bucket analogy, right? It's like you pour more and more of this cold water in that bucket, and eventually life just sucks, right? Because everything is bad, and everyone has better stuff than you have, and, there's always a war somewhere, and there's always somebody suffering, and everything causes cancer. Right? Like, I remember Mira and I wanted to plant a garden in our backyard of our first house. And this study came out that there was leaded gasoline in the air, and so you can't garden anymore because the ground has gasoline in it, and it's going to cause cancer. We're like, oh, goodness. right? Red meat has cancer. Everything. It's like, good Lord. Huh?
I said you're going to die when you die.
Yeah, right? And I love cookies, and those aren't good for you either. And so, because, if all you focus on is all that negativity, right, and all the terrible stuff, it just, it's no wonder depression is such a big thing. And so I think gratitude is sort of the counterbalance to that, right? Sort of the resetting of your heart. And even though there's always conflict and there's always strife, and my kids never listen to me and they scream and break my ears, and it's actually a true story. I'm kind of deaf on this side because my kids keep screaming in this ear. Right? Like you have a 2-year-old, right? And you have a preferred shoulder, right? And so you're holding them, and this is my preferred shoulder. And I went to the doctor. I couldn't hear it so well, and they go, "Oh yeah, well, do you fire guns? No. Do you loud music? No. Go to parties? No. Loud music? No." Exactly. I got a kid yelling in my ear, right? But, there's still so much in life to be thankful for. I remember reading about J.D. Rockefeller, the richest man alive, and his son died of a bacterial infection. It was one of those things where penicillin didn't exist yet. And so even the most powerful man in the world couldn't save his own son from something that I can go and buy for 8 cents a pill. Right? There's just so much to be grateful for. Toilets. Right? Can I get a shout out for that one? I mean, I don't think it's actually true, but my dad used to tell me that houses had big backyards so they could move the outhouses around. And I'm so grateful that I don't have to deal with that. Like, I've been camping. I don't want that to be my everyday experience. It's fun for a night. But, yeah. Or, my personal life, Noel. Who's seen Noel, the 6-year-old little monkey man that runs around? When he was a couple of weeks old, he had RSV, and he couldn't breathe, right? And he went to the hospital eventually, and they were able to get him through it. But I remember sitting in the living room of our house in this old rocking chair that my dad had given us, and just rocking him back and forth, a little kid, right, struggling to breathe, and being so grateful that I knew that if he, when the time came, went to the hospital, he'd be okay. Right? So I'm sure if it had been 200 years ago, he would have died. Right? There's just so much in life to be grateful for. And I wrote down a bunch of stuff: phones, credit cards, teachers, God, faith. I'm very grateful to have a faith that doesn't make me pick between God and science. Right? One of the core tenets of our movement is that mankind is seeking for truth, and truth is just true. It is what it is. Right? And faith and science are just different ways of looking for that truth. To have a religion that I can rationally understand God and then faithfully understand God at the same place, right? That's a unique blessing. I remember going to college and arguing with people, because that's what college kids do. We just know everything. We argue about stuff. And like yeah, I'm a better man now. But a lot of my Christian friends had this conflict in their heart, because on one hand they wanted to love God and have faith and embrace the forgiveness that Christianity brings. But on the other hand, they'd hear a sermon, they'd hear their teachers talk about, the Bible, the universe can't be 5,000 years old, right? We have documented history from, the Assyrians 6,000 years ago, and trying to reconcile those two. I never had to do that, right? So I extremely grateful. I never had to question the love of my parents. I had a lot of friends who parents were divorced. I remember going to summer camps, and the kids would, complain about their parents. I was like, golly, at least my parents love us, love each other, right? It's just, you can go on and on and on, right? About all these things, almost everything in life you can be grateful for. Even the bad stuff, right? Even, I never want anyone to have to experience their son slowly dying in their arms, then rushing to the hospital and being okay, right? But just the gratitude of what that grew in my heart, I am grateful for. There is a book my wife read called Real Love by Greg Bear or something. I never read it, but she talks about it, and so I learned through osmosis. And he talks about, love is kind of like a bank. And if all you have is a couple of bucks, you're rolling quarters for gas, then if someone takes some of that money, it's really painful. But when you've got a couple $100, you've got your emergency fund, you've got some money put away, and you lose a couple bucks, not a big deal. Right? And so it's similar to the bucket analogy, but I think more eloquently put, that, gratitude is sort of like putting money in the bank. Because things will take that money out, right? You'll have that hard time, that tough experience. You'll have that fight with your wife. You'll have that your kids, ignoring you and saying, "I hate you, Dad," and you're like, but I love you. And when they run away, and you're like, you have to be the bigger parent and walk upstairs and sit with them and just console them because they had a rough day. It's sort of the gratitude practices that have filled up your bank that sort of even out the rough patches. So, I guess if there's one thing I want you to take away from this reminder of a Sunday service, is that we all understand gratitude is important. We all know it. We've all heard about it. It's a key part of our faith and almost every faith. Even atheists. Richard Dawkins, who's one of the thought leaders of the new atheist movement, has quotes about gratitude. He's grateful he's alive, and he can look at the universe and go, "Wow, this is so cool." Right? Almost everybody understands the importance of gratitude. But, like I said, life is hard, right? It's hard to remember to be grateful, especially when the tough times come. And so, my wish today is to remind all of us, in the spirit of Thanksgiving, that there's a lot to be thankful for, right? There is, who's ever heard of Huberman? What's his first name? Daniel Huberman? He's a neurobiologist from Stanford, I think. But he has a whole podcast about, gratitude and how going back to that resetting of a heart, right? Sort of stabilizing you. And I wanted to just end on one additional quote, not keep you too long. I was telling Justina earlier, I love 5-minute services. 5-minute sermon's a perfect sermon for me, because then you get the message, you're done, you go have lunch. But one quote from Roy Bennett I thought was indicative of sort of my view of gratitude. "Be grateful for what you have while you pursue your goals. If you aren't grateful for what you already have, what makes you think you'd be happy with more?" Right? Another aspect of gratitude, if you're not grateful for what you have and you're always chasing the next thing, and it's good to have goals. Goals are very important. But if you're always after that next hit of a thing, and you're not enjoying all the things you have, you're just sort of empty inside. And so, going into this week, I know that I was looking up this morning, the Broncos are 1-3, right? So, I'm grateful we still have a team. They haven't left yet, right? But just as you go through this week and spend time with your family and work and everything else, that you just remember to be grateful for all the blessings that we have in our lives. Thank you very much. Pray now. All right. Dear Heavenly Parent, thank you so much for, these days that we have together, for being in Colorado with all the sunshine, and just thankful for having our friends and family close by. We pray that as we open our hearts to gratitude and remind ourselves of all the blessings that you've given us, that you can find peace and joy in our hearts as well. And that way we can share, not just your love, but the peace that comes from your love to those around us. We love you and pray this is Yongil Fleisher Fleisher family. Aju.